Hello everyone. Today we are going to start chapter 2 of class 11 psychology, that is methods of inquiry in psychology. So before starting the video, we have to understand that for researchers and psychologists, it is very important to achieve certain goals of psychological inquiry to get authentic result at the end of the research. So first is description. As psychology got the tag of science, that's why we need to describe a behavior or a phenomena as accurately as possible. Now you may ask why we need to describe a behavior or a phenomena as accurately as possible. Because it helps us in distinguishing one behavior or one phenomena from the other. For example, the researcher needs to be very clear about his or her meaning of study habits to get good result at the end of the research. Then comes your prediction. So if we are able to understand and describe a behavior accurately, then we come to know about the relationship of that behavior with other phenomena, events or other behavior. For example, if the researcher want to study about does motivation affect studies or not, so first of all they have to get an understanding of the term motivation. After that, they are going to learn about the relationship of the motivation with studies or other kind of behavior. Then prediction becomes accurate with increase in the number of people being observed. Next is your explanation. So here we are trying to find about the causal factors or determinants of the behavior. In short, we are trying to know about the causes of the behavior or under which conditions this behavior occur. For example, we are trying to know about the causes of study habits. So it can be related to heredity, it can be related to environment, it can be related to the personality of the person, or it can be related to the goals. So next is your control. So control refers to three things. First is letting that behavior to happen, then is enhancing it or reducing it. Suppose you are letting the subject to use whatever study habits they want to use while studying, and then you are trying to reduce it through noise, chaotic environment, or you are trying to enhance it by providing proper guidance, good materials, books, etc. Last is application. So the aim of inquiry is to bring about positive changes in the life of the people. So if you are getting to know about certain factors that you can apply to the life of the students to increase the concentration through the research upon study habits, definitely it is going to be very helpful for all the students. Or the example given in your book, that application of yoga is there to reduce the stress and anxiety among people. Next topic is steps in conducting scientific research. First is conceptualizing a problem. That means to select a particular topic upon which you want to study or do the research, right? So after it, the second step is collecting data. So while using different procedures, tools and methods, you are trying to get some relevant data to support the research. Then third step is drawing conclusion. So by using different statistical methods, you are trying to get some relevant conclusion out of the research. The fourth step is revising research conclusion. So if the research is bit unsuccessful, so you are trying to restate the existing hypothesis, and the same manner the cycle goes on. So under the topic of conceptualizing a problem, in this the researchers try to find the theme or the topic of the study that is based upon the personal experience of the researcher. It can be related to past research, it can be related to observations and so on. So there are a wide range of problems that they want to study which are related to the behavior and experience of people. So it can be related to understanding of their own behavior, understanding of other individuals' behavior. It can be related to group behavior, or it can be related to knowing the influence of group upon individual behavior. So after that, hypothesis is done. So as I told you, hypothesis is actually a tentative statement that they try to prove in their research. So suppose if the researcher has made the hypothesis that motivation affects study, so we don't know whether this statement is true or false. After that, there is data collection. So data collection helps to give a proper blueprint about the research. So they try to find the participants for their research. So the participants can be your school students, it can be college students, it can be teachers, it can be managers, it can be clinical patients as well. Then is methods of collecting data. So the methods can be observational method, correlational method, case studies, etc. Then comes the tools that they use. So tools can be interview schedule, it can be observation schedule, it can be questionnaire. After that, there is procedure. Now it is simple that the researcher tries to understand how the tools or the methods need to be administered to collect relevant data. Then is drawing conclusion. So in this, the researcher or the psychologist try to analyze the data using statistical method to find that what the data mean. Now the only purpose of the analysis is to verify whether the hypothesis is true or not and to draw the conclusion accordingly. The fourth is or the last step is research or revising research conclusion. That means if the hypothesis is true, then your research is successful, then you can go and make theories. But if for some reason the hypothesis is false, so you will try to restate or make changes in the hypothesis, and then the same steps you have to follow. The third topic is alternative paradigms of research. Now in this we are going to understand the difference between subjectivity and objectivity, or scientific versus interpretive. So it's objectivity, science is included. In subjectivity, psychology is included. In objectivity, we try to measure, there are a lot of measurements that the researcher have to do, whereas in subjectivity they try to interpret and understand. The objectivity approach, they try to state the cause, whereas the subjectivity approach, they try to understand the cause. In objectivity, they try to understand the overt behavior that can be seen outwardly or sensed outwardly, whereas in subjectivity they try to understand the covert behavior which cannot be sensed or seen outwardly. The last is that the objectivity approach, you can say it is quantitative in nature, whereas the subjective approach, they are qualitative in nature. The next topic is nature of psychological data. So as we know, data means information. Now it can be related to the individual, it can be related to their covert or overt behavior, it can be related to your mental process or subjective interpretation and so on. The first classification is your demographic information. Now it includes personal informations like what is your name, what is your religion, your caste, a number of siblings that you have, your occupation, your college and so on. The next is your physical information. That includes information related to your ecological condition, like whether you are living in a plain area, in hilly area, desert, forest, what is the mode of economy, whether it's related to your primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary, quaternary or quinary. Then is the size of the room and so on. The third classification is your physiological data. So it includes your physical, physiological and psychological data, like your height, your weight, your galvanic skin resistance, your reaction time, duration of sleep, etc. The fourth one is your psychological information. So psychological information definitely is related to the psychological attributes of the person, right? So it will include your intelligence, your aptitude, your interest, values, consciousness, hallucination, etc. The next topic is important method in psychology. First is observational method. Now it is very powerful tool in psychological inquiry. It is effective in describing behavior. Now we also do observation in our day-to-day activities, like we try to observe others in school, in classroom, in marketplace, in parks, etc. However, the observation that we do and the observational method that I am talking about, there is a lot of difference. Now how? Because there are certain steps and procedure that the psychologist or the researcher have to follow. First is selection. They have to be very particular about what kind of behavior that they want to observe. Now a psychologist cannot go to a random place and try to observe all people. They have to be particular about it. For example, the researcher want to observe how the people behave in marketplace. The next step is recording. The psychologist or the observer tries to record that particular behavior when that happen by using different means like marking tallies, like symbols, like photographs, videos, and lot more. The third step is analysis of data. The psychologist or the researcher or observer, they try to find out the conclusions out of the data that they have collected. For example, the result that they got, that in general the people in marketplace, they are usually confused about what to buy and what not, or they are in a hurry. Then is your types of observation. So first is naturalistic observation versus your controlled observation. So naturalistic observation occurs in real life setting or natural setting like court, marketplace, stadium, etc. Now you can't make a whole Sarojini Nagar to find out how people will behave in marketplace. So definitely that experiment falls under this naturalistic observation. Then is controlled observation. So here they are done in controlled or made of environment like a psychological laboratory. Then is a participant observation versus non-participant observation. Participant observation, the observer also become part of that group. The person being observed, they are aware of it, and the observer tries to form a rapport so that they will feel that they are part of that group. Whereas in non-participant observation, the people who are being observed, they are not aware of it. The observer tries to observe the other people from a distance. Now this can sometimes pollute the result, because when you see a stranger observing you, you try to change your behavior, you behave awkwardly. Now in that way it can pollute the result or the data the psychologist or the observer is recording. There are certain advantages and disadvantages of observational method. The advantages is, if it is done properly, then we can get relevant and authentic data. Second is, it will help the psychologist to observe the behavior of people in natural setting. When we come to disadvantage, it is quite labor intensive, it is time consuming, and it is susceptible to observer bias. So if the observer is biased toward women, then the person is going to just observe the behavior of the woman in marketplace and not of others. In that way, we are not going to get a relevant result for the research. Next is your experimental method. So here the aim is to establish a cause-effect relationship between different variables or events. Now variable means any stimulus or event that varies, or means its strength can be changed and it can be measured as well. So there are three types of variable. First is independent variable. That means the researcher has a power to manipulate or alter that variable. So you can say it is the cause. Second is dependent variable. It means upon which the effect of independent variable occurs. To make it simple, I am going to give you an example. Suppose the topic is, does motivation affect studies? Okay, so here the independent variable or the cause is going to be motivation. Means the researcher has the power to increase, decrease or manipulate it, and the effect of it is going to be study. Okay, now apart from it, there is extraneous variable which is external in nature and related to your environment, situation and so on. A part of it, it is your organismic variable, which includes your anxiety, personality. Then is your situational factors. Situational factors, it can be your humidity, it can be your noise, it can be temperature. Then is sequential variable. It refers to the sequence in which the subject is exposed to different variables. Next is controlled and experimental group. So in experimental group, the members, they are exposed to the manipulation of independent variable, whereas in case of control group, the manipulation of variable is absent. So there is one experiment conducted by Latané and Darley. So in that case, they have chose two experimental group, where one experimental group, they were instructed that they don't have to report about the smoke. The other one, they were not at all instructed. So after the experiment, it was found that the control group members, they were they reported maximum times, whereas it was followed by the one experimental group who were not instructed, and then the last one where the group members were instructed to not report about the smoke. Apart from that, all other variables they were kept the same, like the amount of smoke, the timing of it and the group members. So it is very necessary to have a control upon all the variables, because they can pollute the experiment some way or the other. Now talking about the advantages and disadvantages of this experimental method, the advantage is that it is less time consuming, it is less labor intensive. The disadvantage is that there is low external validity. Since you are doing that experiment in a controlled environment, there is no guarantee whether it is relevant in outside or it is relevant in your natural settings or not. So it can't be generalized very well. The other disadvantage is that you cannot have control upon all the variables. Even if you try hard, there are certain variables, whether it is organismic or extraneous variable, in which you can't have that control. Next is field experiment and quasi experiment. In field experiment, the situation is natural, whereas in quasi experiment, the situation is created. In field experiment, there is manipulation of the variable, whereas in quasi experiment there is no manipulation of the variables. In field experiment, the cause and effect relationship is established strongly, whereas in case of field experiment, the cause effect relationship is not so strong, it is weak. Then in field experiment, there is high external validity, that it can be relevant in outside world or in natural setting, whereas in quasi experiment there is high internal validity. So last topic of the video, that is correlational research. Here the focus is establishing relationship between two variables. So the changes in the strength and direction of the variables, they are represented through numbers, which is called as correlational coefficient. There are three correlation. First is positive correlation. So if the two variables are duration of studying and the other one is academic achievement, so if it is positive correlation, that means if the duration is increasing, then academic achievement is also increasing, or if the duration is decreasing, then same, the academic achievements are also decreasing. Then if it is negative correlation, that means if duration is increasing, the academic achievement is decreasing, or if the academic achievements are increasing, the duration is decreasing. The last is your zero correlation. That means if the if the duration is increasing, there is no change in academic achievements, or if the academic achievements are increasing, there is no change in the duration of study. Talking about the advantages and disadvantages, the advantages are we are able to collect more data as compared to experiment. It also helps to open up new perspective for further research and study. It also helps in understanding and analyzing relationship between large number of variables in a single go. Now talking about the disadvantages, with this we are not able to properly understand the cause effect relationship, and also we can use it when both the variables are measurable on scales. So as we know, the duration and the academic achievement, we can measure both of them. If one of them is not measurable, then we can't use it.